think we'll begin with, so it's lovely to see everyone and see faces that I've seen before and a couple that I haven't. I think we'll begin with Bim Bam, not in the book, but it's always a good song to start Shabbat with.
Bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam. Bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom.
We will continue on page 84 with Shalom Aleichem as we welcome the Shabbat angels.
Shalom Aleichem, Malchei Hasharet, Malchei Elyon. Mi melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malchei Hashalom, Malchei Elyon. Mi melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu ni leshalom, Malchei Hashalom, Malchei Elyon. Mi melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedechem leshalom, Malchei Hashalom, Malchei Elyon. Mi melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Thank you. Sandy, would you be willing to read the English in the middle of page 85, starting with the synagogue is the sanctuary? There you go.
The synagogue is the sanctuary of Israel, born of our longing for the living God. It has been to Israel throughout our wanderings, a visible token of the presence of God in our people's midst. Its beauty is the beauty of holiness. Steadfast, it has stood as the champion of justice, mercy, and peace. Its truths are true for all people. Its love is a love for all people. Its God is the God of all people. As it has been said, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. Let all the family of Israel, all who hunger for righteousness, all who seek the eternal, find God here, and here find life.
Thank you. I wanted to read this tonight because this Shabbat is Shabbat Pekudei. We are in the last chapter of the book of Exodus. And in this last chapter, and actually in last week's as well, they're often read as a double portion. Next year, they'll be read as a double portion. It talks about the building of the sanctuary, the Mishkan, the portable tabernacle that our ancestors, the Israelites, carried through the desert. And I'm sure many of us are familiar with the song Ma Tovu, right? Ma Tovu Ohalecha Yaakov, how wondrous or how beautiful are your tents, O Israel. Mishkenotecha Yisrael, your tents, O Jacob, your sanctuaries, O Israel. And that song, Matovu, is done at the beginning of many services, and you often find it somewhere on a wall in a physical building of a synagogue. But to me, we create our own synagogue. We're creating our own sacred space here over Zoom. And a reading like this, which reminds us that our longing for the living God, this can happen wherever we are. And this longing for connectedness can happen wherever we are. It will be wonderful when we're all together again under one roof, one ceiling, within four walls. But right now we're in this very spacious liminal space, kind of a big betwixt and between, which means we can create of it whatever we want. And right now we're creating our own Mishkan, our own sanctuary, our own tabernacle, as we finish the book of Exodus. We now turn to page 39. So we're going back in the book to 39 for Lechuna Ranana. And where's Michael? Will you read the English of Lechuna Ranana when Joan is done chanting the Hebrew?
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai.
Sorry. Come, let us sing to the Eternal One. Let our song ring out to our sheltering rock. Now, is this supposed to be responsive, or did you read the whole thing?
Yes, it's supposed to be responsive. And yes, you are supposed to read the whole thing.
Okay.
If we were in person, it would be responsive. Right
Oh,
now,
all right.
you get the whole thing.
Okay. All right. Because Joan only did the first part. All right. Let us come before God with thanksgiving, our voices loud with song. For great are you, Eternal One, high above the gods that are worshipped. In your hands are the depths of the earth. Yours are the mountain peaks. You made the sea. It is yours. The dry land is the work of your hands. You are our God and our shepherd. We are your people and your flock. If only today we would listen to your voice.
Thank you.
Honor, I'll go on. No, I think that's another. That's another.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are done, and we're going to turn to page 46 for Lecha Dodi. We have welcomed the Shabbat angels. We've acknowledged each other in sacred relationship in a sacred space that we've created. And now on page 39, we welcome the Shabbat bride with Lecha Dodi.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nikabala. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nikabala la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nikabala. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nikabala. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. Hishmi anu el hamyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad. L'shem ultiferet v'litchila la 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 la. Lecha dodi likrat kala. Pene Shabbat nikabala. Lecha dodi likrat kala. Pene Shabbat nikabala. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha. Ki hi makor habracha, merosh mekedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava la 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 la, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nikabala, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nikabala, hi toreri, ki va'orech kumi uri shir daberi, Kovara dai la lichni la 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 hado di likrat kala pene Shabbat nikabela lecha do di likrat kala pene Shabbat nikabela boi v'shalom ateret bala gam besimcha uvtzola tochemune am segula boi chala la 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 di likrat kala pene Shabbat nikabela lecha do di likrat kala pene Shabbat nikabela.
Thank you. We are now going to turn to just the next page, page 47 at the very bottom, Sadika Tamar. And then when Joan is done reading, when Joan has finished chanting that, let's see, Irv and Claudia, would you read all the English on page 48? You can divide it up between you however you want. So we begin with the Hebrew on the bottom of page 47, Sadika Tamar.
Sadika Tamar Yifrach Ke'erez Balvanon Yizke Shetulim Bevet Adonai Bechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu Od Yenuvun Beseva Deshenim Vrananim Iyu Lehagid Ki Yashar Adonai Tzuri Velo Avlata Bo.
The righteous shall flourish like palms, grow tall like cedars in Lebanon. Rooted in the house of their God, they shall be ever fresh and green, proclaiming that God is just, my rock, in whom no wrong is found.
The Eternal One is enthroned, robed in grandeur. The Eternal One is robed, girded with strength. The one who founded the solid earth to be unmoving. Ageless is your throne, endless is your being. The oceans cry out, eternal God. The oceans cry out their thunder. The oceans rage in their fury. But greater than the thunder of the torrents, mightier than the breakers of the sea, is the majesty of God on high. Your law stands firm, and your temple, O God, O eternal God, holiness abides to the end of time.
Thank you. And we'll continue with Chatzi Kaddish on page 49.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol bet Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv ve'imru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam ve'al me'al maya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brechu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma ve'imeru. Amen.
Thank you. We now turn to page 50 as we begin the section known as the Shema in its blessings in every one of our services where we do the Shema. There are specific prayers that precede the Shema and specific ones that follow it. Some are the same and some are different depending on the time of day. I was thinking of maybe doing one of the Wednesday night programs, doing it on some of the differences in the prayers between the services. But we'll begin with the Baruch Hu, and then I was wondering, Minna, do you have a Siddur? Would you be willing to read the bottom of page 50 for us after Joan does the Baruch Hu? Yeah, thank you. Okay, Joan.
Lai, 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 lai. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Lai, 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 lai.
Okay, Minna, you need to unmute yourself.
There. Do I start with praise or you are creator?
We praise you
Yes.
we praise you,
Okay.
eternal God.
We praise you, eternal God, sovereign. I don't know why I can't say that. Sovereign of the universe, whose word brings on the evening. With wisdom, you open heaven's gate, and with understanding, you make the ages pass and the seasons alternate. Your will controls the stars, and they travel throughout the skies. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light. You cause day to pass and bring on the night, separating day from night. You command the host of heaven. May the living and eternal God rule us always to the end of time. We praise you, O God, whose love, whose word makes everything fall.
Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ari v'aravim. Thank you, Minna. And Joan will now sing for us Ahavat Olam on page 51. And Carol, do you have a book? No. Okay. Then Marie, would you read the English on page 51 after Joan is finished chanting Ahavat Olam?
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta Torat u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu B'shochbeinu Uvkumeinu Nasiach bechukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה.
ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Shema Yisrael. Oh, sorry.
One sec. Marie, could
Yes.
Marie. Sorry, Marie.
Unending is your love for your people, the house of Israel, Torah and mitzvah.
laws and precepts have you taught us. Therefore, O God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and rejoice in your Torah and mitzvot forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life and the length of our days. Then your love shall never depart from our hearts. We praise you, O God. You love your people, Israel.
Thank you. We'll be continuing at the bottom of page 51 with the Shema, and then at the top of page 52 with the V'ahavta in Hebrew. And Jean, when I'm done chanting the V'ahavta, would you read the bottom of page 52 for us? Okay. So,
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
we're on page 52. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשופך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, Ani Adonai Elohechem.
You shall love your eternal God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your being. Set these words which I command you this day upon your heart. Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be symbols before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them. So shall you consecrate yourself to your God. I am your eternal God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God. I am your eternal God.
Thank you. We now turn to the bottom of page 53. When your children witnessed your power, they extolled you and gave you thanks. Willingly they enthroned you. And full of joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang this song.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, ose fele. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע הים לפני משה, זה אלי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Thank you. That's always beautiful. Elaine, would you be willing to read in the middle of page 54? You need to unmute. Yes.
Who is like you, eternal one, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you? Let's see.
Would you prefer to read another time when you have better light?
Yeah, I can't see.
Okay, so I'll ask you next time. Kay, could you continue in the middle of 54?
Who is like you, eternal one, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, doing wonders? In their escape from the sea, your children saw your sovereign might displayed. This is my God, they cried. The eternal will reign forever and ever. And it has been said, the eternal one delivered Jacob and redeemed us from the hand of one stronger than ourselves. We praise you, O God, Redeemer of Israel.
Thank you. Joan will continue at the bottom of 54 with the first line of the Hashkivenu. And I'm embarrassed to say that there is a gentleman here whose name I cannot recollect. He's called iPhone. Who is that? Will Mr. iPhone read the English on the top of page 55 after Joan sings the Hashkivenu? Okay. Joan.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechayim.
Grant that we may lie down in peace, eternal God, and raise us up, O sovereign, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, and for your name's sake be our help. Shield us from hatred and plague. Keep us from war and famine and anguish. Subdue our inclination to evil. O God, our guardian and helper, our gracious and merciful sovereign, give us refuge in the shadow of your wings. O guard our coming and our going, that now and always we have life and peace. We praise you, O God, whose shoulder of peace is spread over us, over all your people, Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Thank you. Joan will continue with Vishamru, the song without which no Shabbat is complete, on the bottom of page 55.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי, וביום השביעי, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Well, that was emphatic. We know it's Shabbos now. If we were doubting it, we know it. We now turn to I'm losing my pages, page 56 for the tefillah, the service that the rabbis considered the central point of every service that we made. And we're reminded that just as God had these very special relationships with our ancestors, both male and female, then so too can we have relationships like that with God today if we choose to put in the work to make that a reality. I'm going to be chanting the Hebrew on pages 56 and 57, and then we'll take some time for some private prayer, and I'll call us back together on page 60. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, ve'Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Agadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim ve'Konei Hakol, ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. On page 57, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי כל חי ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hakol. So we'll take a few minutes to maybe read some of the words on page 58 through 63. Read them all, just focus on one or two, and then I'll call us back together in a little bit. If you're still praying, please continue to do so. And as Joan sings Modim, which is on page 61, And I believe, as I mentioned the last time, some of the words that Joan sings will be a little different than what's here on the page as she is singing the choral version. So.
Modim anachnu lach, sha'atahu Adonai, sha'atahu Adonai, Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu. Le'olam, le'olam, va'ed. Tzur chayenu, magen ishenu, atahu, ledor, v'ador. Atahu, ledor, v'ador. Node lecha unesaper tehilatcha al chayenu hamasurim beyadecha. Chayenu hamasurim beyadecha. Nishmotenu pikudot lach. Lo chalu rachamecha, lo tamu chasadecha, me'olam kivinu lach. Me'olam kivinu lach.
We will continue with the first of our two songs of peace at the end of the Amidah on page 63 with Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov be'enecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol et uvechol sha'ah. Beshlomecha, Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam.
O sovereign source of peace, let Israel, your people, know enduring peace. For it is good in your sight to bless Israel and all people continually with your peace. And with that, we must keep in mind what's going on in Ukraine and the great desire, the great need for peace over there in all the world. But if it has to start there right now. We're going to continue singing about peace together on the bottom of page 64 with Oseh Shalom.
Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
May the one who ordains peace on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to everyone who lives on this planet. And let us say, Amen. I want to share now a prayer for Ukraine written by a colleague of mine, Joanne Fink, who is a beautiful writer of poetry and amazing Judaic art. And let me see if I'm gonna get to the right place. And I'm not, one moment. I think you've learned by now about me that screen share is not my thing, though I shall never give up. I shall continue to screen share until we no longer have Zoom. Okay. Let me try this again. Here it should be. Prayer for Ukraine. War has begun and innocent people are dying. We ask your protection for Ukraine and its citizens. We pray for their safety and the security of the country and for the neighboring countries, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and among others, that have opened their borders to provide humanitarian corridors and safe passage for all those who wish to evacuate. We seek the comfort of believing that everything will be all right, even in the face of insurmountable odds. Quiet the fears that threaten to deafen us. Grant us shlemut, the inner peace we so desperately seek. Help us remain calm and reach out to those in need. May this horrific situation be diffused swiftly with minimal casualties. Bless our world leaders with the ability to work together for the greater good and with the wisdom to make wise decisions during this turbulent time. Bless the people of all nations with the desire, strength, and courage to create a world based on justice and filled with peace. May the words of Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore, become true in our day, in this very hour. Source of goodness, shine your healing light on us and all those in Ukraine who we hold dear in our hearts. Shelter us, shield us, show us the path to peace, and let us say, Amen. We live in a different world right now than the last time Joan and I spent Shabbat with all of you. It was almost unthinkable that a war like this would happen, and yet it has. And it's no longer unthinkable. What we have to think about now is how do we get this to end? After Shabbos is over, I'm going to email to Susan and to Steve a page of different places that we can donate for help with Ukrainians. There's HIAS, which is the Hebrew Hebrew International Assistance Society, aid.
Yes.
Michael, what am I saying wrong?
It's Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, and I think they're located in Silver Spring.
Yeah, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. A good friend of mine is one of the coordinators for that. It started out as an organization that just dealt with Jews, and then eventually realized, as all good companies should, or agencies should, when their mission changes and when the world changed, and realized they had to continue serving the world and immigrants, but not just Jewish immigrants. And they have a fund that goes directly to help those in Ukraine. The Jewish Federation in this area, actually all the Jewish federations in the country pretty much have funds where 100% of the money donated is going straight to the Ukraine. And there's some others. I'll send you the ones that I know of that have been vetted by myself or by colleagues. And if you find it in yourselves to donate, that is a wonderful thing. And if you can't, that's also fine, because prayers are equally important right now. So I have a dvar, and then I'm going to chant the last few verses from the book of Exodus. And it just so happens that I'm talking about them in my Dvar Torah, so that works out very nicely for me. I'm very happy that the rabbis who planned this cycle so many years ago knew what I would be talking about on this Shabbos in 2022 and planned it that way. So this Dvar I wrote actually last year, if I'm going to be honest, and it is called Why Did God Appear at That Moment? So the Parsha, which is Pekudei, the Parsha ends by telling us when Moses had finished the work, ha-melacha is the word for work. So when Moses had finished the melacha, the work, the cloud covered the tent of meeting and God's presence filled the tabernacle. Now, what is it about that particular moment that caused God to become present in a very material way, in a very physical way, that we could easily see that God was there? So let's go back to the beginning of the quote. At just the moment that the cloud appeared, we learned that it appeared when Moses had finished the work on the tabernacle. And that's in Exodus chapter 40, verse 33, right at the end. So the word used here for work is milacha. For those of you who speak modern Hebrew, you might be more familiar with the word avodah or la'avod for work. And that's the kind of work that, like, you go to avodah, you go to work each day. If you're doing work with your hands, that's avodah. But this word here, melacha, this is the word used for work, which is the same word that was used when God created the world. So in the creation story in Genesis chapter 2, verse 2, God uses this very word, melacha. It's a type of work that has a very strong creative element to it. It's also a type of work that we're not allowed to do on Shabbat. Now, once the tabernacle was completed, it was time to begin the journey, which was from a word called masa. So it's time to begin the journey to the promised land. Rashi, the 12th century commentator, notes that the term masa is mentioned twice in two verses. And those are two of the verses I'm going to be chanting in a moment. The first time is chapter 40, verse 36, when the cloud lifts and the Israelites set out on their masa, on their journey. And then it's actually in the next verse too, but I'm skipping that one for now. And then in the following verse, in chapter 40, verse 38, it says, the cloud rested in their tabernacle as they encamped. Now, the word for encamped is the same root word as masa, as journeyed. So according to Rashi, because they always set out again from the place of encampment on a new journey, therefore all the different stages of their journeys, including the places where they were encamped, where they set their tents up, are all called masaot. They're all called journeys. Now you'll see in the translation that I used to read from, it won't call it a journey. I mean, it won't call it an encampment. It calls it a journey. But Rashi's making a point here. Rashi's saying that journeys can happen when we're moving or when we're settled in one place, be it permanently or temporarily. I guess the journey of life. We're starting and we're going and we're starting, but we're not stopping. We're not stopping from evolving. Now, at the beginning of Genesis, God created the universe and the divine presence was felt throughout the world. At the end of Exodus, so almost 2 books later, Moses completes the tabernacle as a home for God. I like to call it the first in-law apartment. You don't have to laugh. Not everyone gets my humor, but just think about it. We already had tents to live in. We were already living in a community. We knew we were heading to the land of Israel, the promised land, to build our homes there. But God had us build this tabernacle, this mishkan, this portable ark that we traveled with in the desert. And so instead of God coming and sleeping in our tent with us, God's presence as a cloud descended upon the tabernacle. So God was always adjacent to our homes, but not right in our homes, right there. And I think this is really important because the Israelites of that time, they had experienced miracles. They had seen what God could do. Yet even this group of people who had experienced miracles needed to still have some kind of physical representation of God in the world. Therefore, there was the tabernacle. Therefore, there was the cloud that descended on the tabernacle that basically said God's home. Now, the Akedat Yitzchak, a 15th century commentator, writes that the universe could be shown to have been a successful creation only if it were able to function on its own without constant directives from its creator. Right? So the world could only be considered, or the universe could only be considered successful if the creatures that God created didn't need God in that same way anymore, if they could go it on their own. And while we no longer require constant directives from God, we still require signs that God's presence is among us. It's much more difficult in modern times to recognize the miracles wrought daily unless we train ourselves to do so. So to this end, we must remember that each of us is a mishkan. Each of us is a tabernacle. Each of us not only contains a bit of godliness within us, but we're also required and we're able to manifest this godliness in the world and everything that we do. So from the milacha, the work, the creative work of creation, to the milacha of the tabernacle, to our continued milacha of forming holy communities and bringing godliness into the world, we should know that this is our task and this is our purpose. So with that, I am going to read from the last several verses, the last actually 5.5 verses of the book of Exodus. And at the end, I'll have the words up there, the traditional words that we say at the end of a reading of a book, which I believe we did from the book of Genesis, Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek. So let me share the screen. Oops. I need to change the page on my program first. Here we go. So we're at the end of the book of Exodus, chapter 40, verses 33b. That means the second clause in chapter 33 through 38. Vayicha Moshe et hamelacha. When Moses had finished the work, Vayicha Se'anan et ohel ha'moed uchevod Adonai malei et hamishkan. The cloud covered the tent of meeting and the presence of Adonai filled the tabernacle. V'lo yachol Moshe lavo el ohel moed ki shachan alav ha'anan uchvod Adonai malei et hamishkan. Moses could not enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled upon it and the presence of Adonai filled the tabernacle. Uveha'alot ha'anan me'al hamishkan yis'u b'nei Yisrael bechol mas'ehem. When the cloud lifted from the tabernacles, the Israelites would set out on their various journeys. Ve'im lo ye'aleh ha'anan ve'lo yis'u ad yom ha'aloto. But if the cloud did not lift, they would not set out until such time as it did lift. Ki anan Adonai al hamishkan yomam ואש תהיה לילה בו לעיני כל בית ישראל בכל מעשיהם. For over the tabernacle a cloud of Adonai rested by day, and fire would appear in it by night, in view of all the house of Israel throughout their journeys, or in some traditions, throughout their encampments. And together we will say, if you want to unmute yourselves for this, you are welcome to, because we don't get to say it that often. Chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. Be strong, be strong. Let us strengthen one another. So think about this. Every time we finish a book of Torah, this is what we say. Chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. Be strong, be strong. V'nitchazek, that N-I, that N in the beginning means us. Let us strengthen one another. It makes so much sense to me that as we finish a book of Torah, we're reminded that the only way we're going to be able to continue to be strong is if we're strong together, is if we feel ourselves strong and we help strengthen each other, because the world is too difficult a place to live in if we go it alone. And again, it takes us back to the Ukraine, I learned that we're not supposed to say the Ukraine anymore. And I hadn't even realized I said that until I was saying it and read that, because to Ukrainians, saying the Ukraine represents when they were, I guess, the equivalent of a vassal state to Russia. And by just saying Ukraine, it's symbolizing that they're an independent nation on their own.
42 million people.
That's a lot of, yeah, they have a large population, very large population. And in fact, in terms of Jewish population, I believe they're the second largest Jewish population in Europe.
Is that right?
Yeah, which is something like, we don't think about that, but I don't know. How many people here have family that came from Ukraine?
You do?
Yeah, that's like over 4 or 5 of us. Just in this. Who was that?
Romania. And there are some American soldiers right now in Lithuania. They've gone to all the countries, and I have a very special friend who is right now in Germany. Well, he's the father of 2 wonderful girls that I saw being born. We were neighbors for many years. He's a doctor, head of a big army base in North Carolina. And for the first time in 6 years, he was called to serve, and he's in Germany. And they know that I'm suffering because I'm reliving some moments. My children don't want me to watch TV. But I have to.
Yeah, I mean, for all of us, it's a situation that we don't want to look, but we can't look away. And for you, it is so much more than that. And for so many others, it is so much more. All I can say is, if you ever want to talk, I'm here, and call me. And there's just too much of what people have experienced, what we hoped was in the past. What did never again mean if something like this is happening again? Now, I'm not saying this is the Holocaust, and I'm not saying this is just against Jews. I mean, that would be, it doesn't make any sense to say that. But that was supposed to be the war to end all wars. After World War I was the war to end all wars. And how many of us in our lifetimes really expected to see another war? God willing, this will end speedily and in our day. And it's hard not to hurt, and it's hard to turn away from what we're seeing. I met someone online, another rabbi from another country, and it turns out it looks like his grandparents and my great-grandparents may have come from the same village outside of Kiev.
Wow.
All over the internet and social media, people are posting, Jewish people, because I mainly hang out in Jewish spaces, are posting about family members of theirs that came from Ukraine, and many didn't even know their family came from Ukraine, and they just found this out now. So we have to keep everyone in our hearts and prayers, and in many ways that seems like, what does that really mean to keep someone in your heart and your prayers? But that's what we have to do. Unless we're going to go over there, which it probably wouldn't help anyone if the group of us got up and went to Ukraine right now. But, you know, letting our voices be heard, giving money if we can give money, praying when we can pray. This is what we're able to do, and this is what we need to do.
Well, you know, Rabbi, I think many of us didn't know our relatives were from the Ukraine because it was part of Russia when they immigrated. My father was from the Ukraine region, but he called it Russia.
Mhm.
But on the map, it's the Ukraine now,
Yeah.
along the Dnieper River.
Yeah, and that's with a lot of people. It's kind of like with Poland, right? Poland was part of the Pale that switched back and forth. And the way that if you're a Jewish family, I don't know if it's for everyone, but the way, if you're a Jewish family, to know if your family left that area when it was under Polish control or Russian, it depends on how your name is spelled, the last letter. So my mother's family name was Venetsky, and it ended in a Y, which meant that it was Polish at the time. And if it ended in an I, it would have been Russian. I don't know why, but I know you're making, some people are being skeptical, but I read this and I've met lots of families who have the same thing because the spellings change. I don't know.
Well,
We will.
know this.
What?
Way back when, I'm going to talk about way back when, Kiev was the capital of Russia. And
Wow.
yes, if you read the history, go back far enough, basically it was the capital in the early times. The fact of the matter is that my mother and her three sisters and my grandmother all got here from Ukraine. They were displaced during the First World War when the Germans occupied their village. So, you know, that's my connection.
Yeah.
What I find a certain sense of pride and a certain sense of foreboding is that the person who is the president of Ukraine is a Jew.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it fascinating and in a sense uplifting that he has the courage.
Yes.
I'll use that I've seen many times on the Facebook and other pages, that he has debates him to stand up to the most evil, one of the most evil people on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to have a meeting with him or a conference or Zoom.
So we don't know how this will end. We just have to pray that it ends as soon as possible, and so that no more people have to lose their lives because of one person's outsized desires. But that is all we will say of politics for the moment. As we turn to read a prayer of healing, the Debbie Friedman adaptation of the Misha Berach, which actually, yes, I guess I'll be adding a little politics into that as well. I invite everyone now to bring into your minds and your hearts those for whom you want to send special blessings of healing, family members, friends, people who you live near, your neighbors, and also all those in Europe right now, in Ukraine and in all the other countries, and those poor young people from Russia who didn't know what they were getting into. Prayers for healing transcend boundaries.
מי שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. מי שברך אמותינו מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit. And let us say, Amen.
We turn now to page 148 in our Sidurim for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו, אין עוד, אמת מלכנו, אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, והשיבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ, מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We'll turn now to page 154 for Mourner's Kaddish. Jean, you have the Yahrzeit list?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
The Yahrzeit for the month of March. Ted Barr, husband of Carol Barr. Stanley Berger, brother of Elaine Moses. Bertha Krausman, mother of Sandra Krausman. Olivia Elkheim, wife of David Elkheim. Paul Fox, brother of Florence Lang. Sam Friedman, paternal grandfather of Steve Friedman. Charles Lehman, brother of Leonard Lehman. Isaac Levine, maternal grandfather of Steve Friedman. Robert Lipman, son of Alan and Leah Lipman. Ronald Olin, brother of Erwin Olin. Michael Parson, husband of Minnie Parson. Louis Schulman, father of Bonnie Dutcher. Hugo Schuster, father of Ruth Goldman. Recha Schuster, mother of Ruth Goldman. Bess Shea, a member. Gabriel Swart, father of Mimi Goldstein. Hyman Shapiro, husband of Irene Shapiro. Judith Whitman, wife of Harold Whitman. Matthew Zimmett, brother of Elihu Zimmett. And in a year of mourning, Martin Adler, husband of Harriet Adler.
Are there any,
Excuse me, I got an email where they already made the correction from Mini to Mina. So I don't know. Jean, you're allowed to say Mina, the correct name, not the one that's on your list.
I will make the correction immediately.
Yes, because I got an email with the correction.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has, who is in mourning or who has a yurt site? Michael?
I believe it's a year of mourning for Stuart Carlos, a former member. He passed away last year. I thought he was in the list.
I'll write it down.
Are there any other yurt site?
Yes. William Silverman, father of Eugene Silverman.
And George Goldstein, father of Rabba Arlene Goldstein Berger. We'll say the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba ve'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam olomei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitala v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'richu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'olma v'imru amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens cause peace to reign among us, all Israel, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, and for everyone who lives on earth. And let us say, Amen. May the memories of our loved ones always be for a blessing. We will conclude on page 156 with Adon Olam, which will be sung to the melody of We Shall Overcome.
Adon Olam asher malach beterem kol yitzir nivrach le'et nasa v'cher sokol azai melech shemo nikra azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא יהיה בתפארה. והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ואלוה העוז והמזרע, ולא העוז והמשרה. והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בעצרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא. בידו אבקיר רוחי, בעת אישן ועירה, ועם רוחי גווייתי. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
May the prayers of our hearts and our mouths, may the prayers of our souls, may the actions of our hands, may when we look into the eyes of the other, we see godliness reflected within. May all that we do somehow help even a little bit to bring about peace a little bit sooner than it might come otherwise. I want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat of love and peace and friendship and health
Rabbi,
and peace and peace.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I have a very moving story to tell. Somebody who's been looking for me for 75 years in France just found me.
Oh, how wonderful.
That's why I'm very emotional. I got a letter from France last week, and I said, I don't know the town from which this person wrote. I don't know this person. We're 11 years old, and she's been looking for me all these years. And she had 4 daughters and 2 sons. She didn't tell them about the little Jewish friend that she had. We were pals on the beach when we were both 11. And we corresponded until 1949. And then she never heard from me again. That's when I
Wow.
left for America. And she told her children that before she died, she wants to find the little Mina. And we just talked. And I just talked to her the day after I got the letter. It turned out her husband had just died the day before. And she sent me the most beautiful card with her email address as well as a regular address. She has the phone, home phone and cell phone, and an email. So she asked me right away to write an email, which I did. And the first email, when she got it, she couldn't write very much because they were planning for the funeral, which just took place
Oh,
this
dear.
Wednesday. But she said, I find you now, I'll never let you go. And the French, she said, je te serre contre mon cœur. I'm hugging you against my heart. This, as Tom comes at the time, and already my Namat, people from Namat, from California are putting in their newsletter because it's something so good to show the kindness of people. I can't believe it. She told me if I didn't remember her, she would forget me. I don't remember. That's what's so terrible in some respect. But because she was a Christian, she thought, what could have happened to my little Mina and her family? She worried about us. And she has a son-in-law who is a history teacher. He teaches the Holocaust, but he couldn't get anywhere. But she has a daughter who is very good in internet. And she found me, and she found a lot of research in a little town where my sister and I lived in hiding. She went to Chamonix. I mean, it's just such an unbelievable story. So I'm very moved this week. I'm crying as well as.
Yeah. Thank you so much for blessing us with that story. It gives hope that miracles can happen, even of things that we've forgotten parts of or thought we were forgotten. Thank you. You were making me cry, and then that'll ruin the makeup that I'm not wearing.
I'm sorry.
So don't do it
Oh,
again. I'm kidding. But thank you for sharing that.
I
It
just
reminds us why everything we do matters. It really makes a difference. So there's an email will be coming out either tomorrow night or Sunday with announcements for what's to come, with my name and my name, but with my email address and phone number if anyone ever needs to talk, and with places to donate money. And get a good sleep, everyone.
Thank you.
Laila Tov, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Be safe.
All right.
Lovely
Okay.
job, cantoral soloist Joan.
Same to you, Rabbah.
Shabbat shalom.
You stole my words.
Yes, someone had to say them. I'm sorry, I was caught up in the moment and didn't announce announcements, but we'll send an email out. I'll send you my stuff and then you can add the rest.
Also, it must have been like 6 months ago, Mina had a movie about her life in France, and most of us saw it.
Really?
But yeah, that's why I mentioned it to you, Rabbi Berger, because you didn't get an opportunity to see it, but it's an interesting
No.
movie. And if Mina wouldn't mind and Steve thinks it's okay, maybe we should show it again, because it was a very moving movie.
I would love to see it.
We've shown it twice, and I think.
Oh,
that
I didn't.
Very
Miss-
moving.
Yeah, but
and
when
very
we showed it,
worthwhile.
the first time was many, many years ago.
Oh,
Was it
I
about?
only saw it once. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even if I can see it privately, I would be happy to see
Yeah.
it.
Okay, right now, Ingleside, Sally, whatever her last name is, Horn, has a copy of my DVD, of my documentary. She's had it for a month because she wants to show it at Ingleside in April. Well, this is already March. She's had my for a long time, but she doesn't have what do you call it, to show she doesn't have a
DVD player.
So what happened, the person who came to help me yesterday, the college student who spent all day with me, for the first time, we tried this DVD that my son that only knew how to open because it's so new and we've never used it. That young man knew how to do it, but he needed a blue and red. Is that when he needed a special cord?
Oh,
and he left me and he went to get that cord. But what we're getting, of course, we saw it, but we're getting a reddish background. Do you know, if he says that this is what happens when something is old? An old DVD, but we had no trouble last year when Hevrat Shalom showed it. Thank you for bringing it up. I'm kind of, usually when I was much younger, a few years back, I showed not my movie, but I have huge cardboards. Nobody, I don't think, even Steve has never seen it. Years ago, on the days that we had a big event in Montgomery County, we would be asked to show our cardboards with the history, with the events that happened in my movie. You will see them on my YouTube boards. And so when people would come to the big synagogue to see all the dignitaries and all the the events were taking place on usually around the end of April during the day, the National Day of Remembrance, which usually falls on the Sunday. Then we would stand in the hallway of the synagogue, and people, as they came in, they would see this person, they would see my person. So I almost lost those when I had a flood in my former apartment. But I still have them. And I would be glad for anybody who wants to come in a few days, not this week, because I'm not ready right now emotionally. You can already get an idea. You can look at my cardboards. It has so much story.
Well, I look forward to visiting you one day and seeing all this. I'm going to wait a little bit as we're expecting our second grandchild sometime in the next month and a half. And we've been given strict instructions to hibernate as much as possible by the future parents. But
You're too young to have grandchildren. Oh my goodness.
thank you. I've been waiting for them my whole life. But my granddaughter this evening, she's 2, she wouldn't say Shabbat Shalom to me. She said, hello, Safta, which is grandmother in Hebrew. Hello, Safta, when I first got on the FaceTime. And then when it was time to leave, I wanted to bless her. And she was like, and then finally I said, Shabbat Shalom, Brianna. And she goes, Shalom, hey. And then said, bye-bye, and walked away. So we learn what's important in life: peace and joy, yelling hey whenever we feel like it, and then leaving the scene when we have said our bit. And actually, I am going to have to leave now, as I have to be up early to lead a service tomorrow morning. So I look forward to getting to know all of you better as time goes on. Hopefully that too will be speedily and in our day. But until then, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm really leaving this time.